boy sat quietly in the glass-walled waiting room, legs dangling from a chair too high for him, hoodie sleeves covering his small hands. He was drawing with a blue crayon on the back of a discarded flyer. A passing intern smirked, loud enough for the whole office to hear. "What is this take your kid to work day for janitors?" Laughter, a few snorts. One manager even chuckled without looking up from his laptop. Then, the glass door opened, and the janitor walked in, not to apologize, not to make a scene, but holding something in her hand. Something her son had drawn, something that would expose a lie and change the fate of everyone in that room. Janet McAllister had never planned to bring her son to work. But sometimes life doesn't care about your plans. The sitter had canceled last minute. Her shift started at 7 a.m. The office where she worked as a janitor, cleaning up after people who never even made eye contact, didn't care about personal emergencies. So she brought Jalen, 9 years old, smart, quiet. A little too quiet since his dad left. Janet gave him a notebook, some colored pencils, and strict instructions. "Sit near the vending machine, don't talk to anyone, don't wander off." He nodded, serious as always. That kid carried a silence like armor. She kissed his forehead, adjusted his hoodie, and rolled her cart toward the glass conference rooms. It was still early. The tech startup on the 34th floor didn't officially wake up until 10, but the interns came first, always hungry to impress. And that's when it started. Jalen was sketching, something with squares, arrows, stick figures, and symbols. He liked to design little machines with made-up functions. This one had a label. Thought Recycler, idea goes in, better one comes out. That's when Ethan walked by. Ethan, the 25-year-old golden boy with the MBA smile, cuffed chinos, and an ego the size of Manhattan. He was the kind of guy who wore designer sneakers and called it streetwear. The kind of guy who referred to Janet as ma'am, but never looked her in the eyes. He spotted Jalen, tilted his head, and smirked. "Hey, little man," he said, loud enough for nearby desks to hear. "You applying for our CEO position?" A few chuckles. Jalen blinked at him, unsure. Ethan leaned in, plucked the drawing from Jalen's lap, held it up like a piece of garbage. "Is this a robot that thinks better than you? Maybe your mom should try it." Laughter now, louder, crueler. Jalen said nothing. Janet was halfway down the hall when she heard it. That laugh. She knew that laugh. She'd cleaned after that laugh. She turned. Jalen wasn't crying. He never did in front of people, but his hands were clenched into fists, his body stiff like he was trying to disappear into the vending machine. And Ethan? Ethan was still holding the paper, still laughing, with her son's name written in block letters at the top. Janet didn't scream. She didn't cause a scene. She walked right up to Ethan. He looked confused for a second, then gave her a rehearsed smile. "Oh, hey, Janet. Is this your kid?" "Cute. Just having a little fun." She took the paper from his hand, gently like it was a sacred document. "Don't ever touch his things again." He chuckled. "Whoa, relax. It's just a joke." Her eyes didn't move. To you, maybe. To him, it's the world. The manager, tall, balding, always avoiding conflict, poked his head out. "Is there a problem here?" Janet held back every word she wanted to say, every insult, every scream. "No problem, just cleaning up." And with that, she took Jalen by the hand, walked to the elevator, and left early. Unpaid. In the elevator, Jalen whispered, "I didn't mean to get you in trouble." Janet knelt in front of him, hands on his shoulders. "You didn't. They did." That night, she unfolded the drawing, really looked at it. It wasn't just a silly sketch. There were arrows pointing to different boxes labeled initial input, assessment, feedback loop, final strategy. Tiny stick people stood next to each section, saying things like, "Let's improve this." "I have a new idea." She stared at it for a long time. The next morning, she put the drawing in a folder, just in case. What happened next changed everything. You don't want to miss how this unfolded. Write in the comments. Have you ever stayed silent in the face of disrespect? Just to keep your job Monday morning, Janet showed up to work 15 minutes early. Not because she was afraid, but because she needed to watch them. Jalen stayed home this time. She didn't have a sitter, but she wasn't going to let him walk into that place again. Not after what they did. Not after how they looked at him like he didn't belong. The building lobby smelled like money. Polished marble, fake plants, cold air from too many vents. She pushed her janitor's cart past the front desk and scanned her badge for floor 34. And when the elevator doors opened, silence. The same interns, the same managers, Ethan in the same expensive sneakers. But now, no one made eye contact. No "Hi, Janet," no forced smile, just a collective, professional cold shoulder. At 9:05 a.m., she was called into the facilities office. Manager was already sitting there, posture stiff. He didn't ask how she was, didn't mention Ethan, just pushed a piece of paper toward her. "We've received concerns about inappropriate use of the workplace for personal needs," he said flatly. "You understand that bringing your child into a client-facing environment reflects poorly on the building." Janet didn't blink. "I understand your interns think bullying a child is client-facing professionalism, too?" Silence. "There's no official complaint from the other party," the manager said carefully, "but we've been asked to keep the environment distraction-free." She read between the lines. This wasn't a reprimand. It was a warning shot, a quiet little push. Move quietly, stay small, be invisible again. She signed the paper, not because she agreed, but because she needed to stay inside. Inside this building, inside this system. Later that day, cleaning out the small conference room, she noticed something. One of Jalen's sketches, a different one, still stuck to the corner of a whiteboard, half erased. It looked like nonsense at first, but then she looked closer. It mirrored a layout she had cleaned off the main presentation screen the day before, a diagram about flow dynamics and decision architecture. Except, Jalen had changed it, simplified it. There were arrows going in different directions, labels with words like Option B, listen first, and something written in messy, rounded handwriting. Sometimes adults forget other people have ideas too. She froze. This was not just a drawing. This was commentary. And it wasn't the only one. Over the next 2 days, Janet quietly checked the rooms her son had sat in. She found sticky notes stuck under chairs, doodles on unused flip charts, tiny, almost hidden critiques. Suggestions. Jalen had been observing, listening, and he had thoughts. Good ones. Brilliant ones. On Wednesday, Janet passed Ethan in the hallway. He was giving a tour to some external partners, potential investors maybe. He was all smiles, speaking fast, pitching something about a disruptive workflow strategy designed to optimize team-based ideation. Janet paused. Behind him, in the main boardroom, on the projector screen, she caught a glimpse of something. A diagram. Jalen's diagram. But cleaned up. Polished. Stripped of its hand-drawn charm. Rebranded with a title in bold font. The Reverse Loop Model, by Ethan Green. Her breath caught in her throat. He hadn't just mocked Jalen, he stole from him. That night, she took every sketch Jalen had made, laid them out across their small kitchen table. She matched one to a slide she saw in a marketing deck left open on an intern's computer. Another to a line Ethan used during a client Zoom call she overheard while mopping. It wasn't one idea. It was 4. All stolen. All quietly inserted into decks and presentations and whiteboards. By a man who mocked the child who made them. She stayed up all night writing. Not a complaint. A plan. Friday was supposed to be ordinary. The Future Leaders Roundtable, their shiny weekly event, was in full swing. Folding chairs arranged in a neat circle. Pitch decks ready. Investors from the West Coast flying in. The company's rising stars were selected to pitch new ideas that could shape the next quarter's strategy. And Ethan? He was the crown jewel of the showcase. They gave him the 11:00 a.m. slot, prime time. The conference room lights dimmed. People leaned forward with notebooks. Janet, pushing her cart nearby, wasn't supposed to be there. But when the door cracked open during a break and someone asked her to take care of the spill near the podium, she walked in, mop in one hand, folder in the other, and Jalen's handwriting folded between the pages. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The projector flickered to life and Ethan launched into his pitch. We call it the reverse loop model, a new way to process team ideas by inverting the traditional feedback chain. It puts listening before output, reception before reaction. Janet's fingers tightened on the folder. He was selling her son's thoughts. word for word. Then something slipped. Ethan moved too quickly, tapped a wrong slide. On screen flashed a rough, scanned notebook page. A child's drawing, the stick figures, the boxes, the label. Thought recycler. Idea goes in, better one comes out. There was a beat of silence, then murmurs. The investors leaned forward. Someone near the back whispered, "Wait, what is that? Is that a kid's sketch?" Ethan panicked. Sorry, wrong file. Let's keep going." But the room didn't move on. Janet stepped forward. Just enough. Still silent, still holding the folder. The head of strategy, a sharp woman in a white suit, spoke. "Whose drawing is that, Ethan?" His smile cracked. "It's just a conceptual rough from the early brainstorm phase." Janet's voice cut through the room. "It's my son's." Everyone turned. She was still in her janitor uniform, still holding a mop. But now every eye in the room was locked on her. She stepped closer, laid the folder on the table, opened it. Inside, every sketch, every date, every comparison. Side by side with the company's official slides. No dramatics, no yelling, just proof. Undeniable, uncomfortable, unwelcome. The room froze. A young intern spoke without thinking. "Wait. So the whole pitch is based on this kid's stuff?" Ethan tried to laugh. "Look, ideas evolve. Inspiration comes from—" "Mocking him was your inspiration?" Janet's voice didn't rise. It just cut deeper than shouting ever could. One of the investors, an older black man in a tailored gray suit, leaned back, arms folded. "So let me get this straight," he said slowly. "You laughed at a boy, then built your presentation on his ideas, and didn't credit a single one?" Ethan's mouth opened, closed. Nothing came out. The room stayed silent, the kind of silence that cracks ceilings. Then the woman in the white suit stood up. She didn't look at Ethan, she looked at Janet. "What's your name?" "Janet McAllister." She nodded. "And your son?" "Jalen." Pause. "We'd like to speak with both of you, immediately." Later that evening, Janet and Jalen sat together in a small office. No mop, no folding chairs, just two people finally being seen. Jalen was nervous. He kept clutching his notebook. But Janet squeezed his hand. "You're not in trouble, baby." The woman from strategy arrived. No PowerPoint, just a printed page. It was a letter of acknowledgement to Jalen, formally crediting him as an ideation source for the reverse loop model. She laid it on the desk, then turned to Janet. "We'd also like to offer something else, a position, not as a janitor, as a creative consultant, part-time if needed, for you and Jalen, together." Janet didn't smile, not yet. "You can't fix what happened, not with a title." The woman nodded. "No, but it's a start, and a message." This is the moment it all flipped. And you won't believe what happened when the person who started it all came back, begging. If you believe talent comes from everywhere, hit that subscribe. Part 4? It's gonna sting. It had been 4 days since everything fell apart. 4 days since Ethan's pitch crashed and burned under the weight of a child's notebook. 4 days since Janet and Jalen's names had been quietly, then publicly, added to internal reports and slide decks. And then, Thursday morning, just after sunrise, the elevator doors opened. And there he was. Ethan. No interns trailing behind him, no blazer, no laptop, just him. Holding a cardboard box, eyes swollen, smile gone. He stepped out into the lobby where Janet was cleaning the glass entrance. He stopped, looked at her, and for the first time, didn't speak first. Janet didn't flinch. She wiped one last streak from the glass and turned. "You here to check if the floor's still clean?" His voice was hoarse. "They told me to pack up." She nodded slowly. Not smug, not cruel, just tired. He stared at his shoes for a long moment, then said the words no one thought he knew. "I'm sorry." The lobby was empty. Just the two of them. "Sorry for mocking him?" she asked. "Or for getting caught stealing from him?" Ethan winced. "I didn't know it would go that far." Janet raised an eyebrow. "That far? You mean people finding out?" He swallowed. I It was just a drawing. I didn't think. Exactly, she interrupted. You didn't think, you didn't ask, you didn't care. Because you looked at a kid in a hoodie with a janitor mom and thought, he's safe to ignore. She stepped closer. But you weren't just stealing ideas, you were stealing possibility. He didn't speak. Couldn't. She wasn't yelling. But every word felt like weight pressing on his chest. Ethan set down the box, pulled something out. Jalen's original drawing, the one he mocked. Carefully flattened. Edges still wrinkled. Crayon still visible. He handed it to her, silently. Janet took it, looked at it, then looked at him. He didn't draw that to get credit. He drew that because his mind sees things. She paused. But now he knows what it costs when people laugh at what you see. Ethan looked up, eyes red. Can I talk to him? Janet considered it. He doesn't need your apology. You do. That night, Janet showed Jalen the drawing. He looked up at her. Are you mad he took it? She shook her head. I'm proud you made something so powerful someone tried to steal it. He smiled, small, quiet, then reached for another sheet of paper. I'm going to draw something else. The next week, the company quietly announced a new internal initiative. Ideas from Everywhere, a program for community input, underrepresented voices, and early mentorship. Janet was listed as strategic consultant. Jalen's name, still with the crayon signature, appeared on slide decks as a case study in creative ideation. As for Ethan, he didn't vanish. A month later, Janet saw his name, not on Forbes, but on a small local startup blog. He'd joined a nonprofit incubator, entry-level, anonymous. Someone wrote, he's quiet now, listens more than he talks. Sometimes shame breaks you. Sometimes it builds something else, but either way, it doesn't erase what you did. 3 weeks later, the invitation arrived. Not a formal one. No envelope, no gold lettering. Just a printed email slipped under Janet's locker door. We're inviting all team members and contributors to present one meaningful story of how perspective shaped progress. No titles, no hierarchy, just voice. She almost tossed it in the trash. Almost. But Jalen read it first. You should do it, Mom. She shook her head. They're not asking me. They're asking for a performance. Jalen looked at her, calm. So give them one. Thursday afternoon. Glass-walled atrium, dozens of chairs, a clean mic, tech startup executives in tailored casual. Open dialogue, reimagining impact, projected on the wall behind them. Janet walked to the stage wearing her usual uniform. Gray slacks, navy blue cleaning company shirt. Not for symbolism, because she'd just come from work. She stood behind the mic, no PowerPoint, no rehearsed slides, just her. She let the silence stretch. People shifted in their chairs, someone cleared their throat. Then she began. A few weeks ago, my son drew something during my shift. He called it a thought recycler. He said adults get stuck using the same ideas over and over, so he wanted to make a machine that takes those thoughts, rethinks them, and sends them back better. She looked directly at the crowd now. Some uncomfortable, some curious, some very still. It got laughed at, then it got stolen, then it got branded. No anger in her tone, just wait. I've cleaned every whiteboard in this building. I've mopped under strategy sessions, brainstorms, leadership offsites. I've been invisible in rooms full of ideas. But my son, he saw through your glass walls before you even looked up. She pulled the original drawing from a folder, held it up. This isn't a mistake. It's not a joke. It's not inspiration. It's authorship. A pause. One executive stood up, then another. The woman in the white suit nodded from the front row. She'd told Janet earlier, we can't fix history, but we can stop repeating it. Janet stepped down from the stage. No applause. Not because they didn't want to, because they were still processing. That kind of silence? It was no longer dismissal, it was recognition. Jalen waited in the hallway. He wore a clean hoodie this time. Still oversized, still quiet. She handed him the drawing. Ready to put this one away? He looked at it, then flipped it over. Began a new sketch. No, he said. This one's part of something bigger now. 2 months later, the company officially launched the Jalen McAllister Studio, a creative development lab pairing underrepresented youth with product teams. Janet was named director, not assistant, not diversity hire, director. As for Ethan, he sent one more thing. A typed letter, no excuses, no name dropping, just one sentence. If you're ever hiring, I'd like to listen first this time. She didn't reply, but she kept the letter, not as a trophy, as proof that even systems built on silence can learn to speak.